People think subway ghosts live in the tunnels. They don't. They live in the gaps in the schedule. I spent 12 years in operations for Metro Transit. Scheduling, line diagrams, control room shifts. I knew every station, every junction, every crossover in the system. Officially. Unofficially, there's a place even we weren't supposed to talk about. The old Central Loop. When the city expanded the network, they decommissioned half of the original Circle line. Too tight curves, outdated ventilation, no accessibility. We rerouted trains around a new hub and quietly closed 4 stations. On the public map, their names vanished. On the master schematic in operations, they stayed. Not in black like the active lines, but in a faint, almost embarrassed gray. We called them the Forgotten Four. There were rules about them: no scheduled traffic, no test runs, no work orders after midnight, no one alone. On paper, those rules were about safety: old infrastructure, unstable ceilings, risk of collapse. In the control room, when the big board dimmed for the night and the only light came from the screens, the older dispatchers would say different things. "Don't route anything through there after last service," my supervisor Lorna warned on my first graveyard shift. "If you accidentally set a path into the gray, cancel it, immediately." "Because of the age of the tunnels?" I asked. She didn't blink. "Because sometimes the system doesn't cancel it," she said. "And the train doesn't come back." I laughed it off. Until the night we had a jumper on Line A and everything went to hell. It was a Friday, 01:23 a.m. Last trains rattling in, system winding down. Then the emergency alarms lit up red on panel A13. Track intrusion, power trip, driver screaming over the radio. We killed the power, alerted emergency services, triggered the protocols. I watched the last 3 trains back up in the diagram like stuck beads on a wire. We were supposed to unload them at the nearest stations, hold them, evacuate calmly. But people are not calm at 01:30 when they've heard someone die under steel. Central Station became a mess of shouting and pushing, and phones held high. The driver of train 804 was shaken, sobbing on the radio. He jumped, I couldn't." In the chaos, operators yelled, radios screamed, someone spilled coffee onto a keyboard. And I, idiot that I am, tried to be efficient. "We can clear some congestion if we send 804 around the old loop," I said, tracing the gray curve with my finger. "Just once. No passengers, driver only. It links back into Line C east of Central. It'll free platform space." Lorna's head snapped around. "No," she said. "We don't use Central Loop. Ever." "But it's physically there," I argued. "Track is intact. Signals still show on the board. It's faster than backing him all the way out." "That loop is dead, Eric." Her voice had a crack in it. "We buried it. We don't wake it up for convenience." Behind us, the operations manager barked into his headset. "We've got news choppers overhead in 10, he said. "I want platforms clear of that scene. Reroute 804. Use any available track." Lorna opened her mouth, closed it. He pointed at me. "You," he said. "Do it." I hesitated. Then I set the path. On the board, the gray arc from Central to the Forgotten line lit up green, switches aligning with a series of satisfying little blips. Signal repeaters flickered. The route registered: 804, Central Loop, C East. "Train 804, I said on the radio. My voice didn't sound like mine. "We're going to turn you around via an old loop to get you clear. No passengers will board. Proceed when you get a green." There was a pause. "Is that allowed?" the driver asked, still shaking. "Just follow signals," I said. "We've got you." We didn't. The platform camera showed 804 emptying out. Stunned passengers herded onto stairs, paramedics visible in the background at the far end. The car doors closed. The train eased away from the platform and into the tunnel. The little white block representing 804 slid along the line on the panel, past the usual turn, onto the unlit curve. Steel that hadn't felt wheels in years rang with the movement. Approaching retired sector, I muttered to myself, watching the status lights. Old track circuits pinged back one by one. Rusty, but alive. "See?" the manager said behind me. "Still works. We should have used it ages ago." At first it was fine. 804 advanced across Sector 1, then Sector 2. The signal repeater on Sector 3 flickered, then steadied. "Central loop is acknowledging train," the computer said in its bland voice. 804. "How's it look down there?" I asked. Silence. "Train 804, respond." Only the hum of line noise. The white block on the board reached the halfway mark on the forgotten arc. It should have kept going, building speed, coming back into the main map like nothing had happened. Instead, it stopped. The track circuit under it went dark. Not red, not occupied. Just off. Every circuit on the loop followed. One after another they went from green to black. The old line disappeared from the board like someone had pulled its plug. "Power surge?" I asked. "System glitch?" Lorna was already leaning over my shoulder, fingers flying across keys, forcing refreshes. "Manual ping," she shouted. "Give me any response from 804. Panic button, door status, anything." Nothing. The operations manager's face went the color of paper. "Cut main power to that section," he snapped. "We might have a bigger failure." We cut it. Nothing changed. Central loop wasn't on our network anymore. For 3 minutes, the control room went insane. Techs, supervisors, managers all yelling at once. Emergency protocols for train unresponsive clashed with equipment failure and active incident on adjacent line. Then, slowly, like a ghost blinking into existence, the track circuits lit back up, one by one. Gray, like they'd been before I touched them. No train. 804's icon was gone. The driver's radio went to dead air. We found the train 7 hours later. Not through the system. Through a maintenance crew that swore the loop was physically walled off. "There's solid concrete there," one of them insisted over the phone. "We sealed those tunnels 5 years ago. Welded gates, poured walls. You can't route a train into solid rock." They went down to prove it. Behind the weld marks and new concrete, there was a gap. A rusted sliding gate was half open, as if someone had forced it recently. Beyond, a tunnel curved into darkness. 804 sat in the middle of it, lights off, doors closed. Empty. No driver. No footprints in the grime on the floor. No sign of anyone leaving or entering. Dust lay thick on the seats except for 3 places where coats had once rested, pockets pressed against fabric. "Impossible," the tech whispered over the live helmet feed. "It's like it's been here for years." The station beyond the loop, one of the forgotten 4, glowed faintly in the distance. Old posters peeled from the walls. A timetable board listed services that hadn't run since before I was hired. On the platform, caught in the very edge of the flashlight beam, I saw them. Shapes. Row after row of people standing upright, shoulder to shoulder. Too still. Too straight. Faces pale and featureless until the light swung fully onto them and revealed mannequins. Advertising dummies. Practice props. Leftovers from some forgotten safety drill. "See?" the manager said, half hysterical relief in his voice. "Nothing there. Just old junk. Train must have rolled in on its own. The driver walked out through maintenance access. We'll find him. Close it all up again." The helmet cam jerked. The tech had moved closer to one of the mannequins. "Sir," he said quietly, "these aren't mannequins." He lifted his free hand, brushed frost from a lapel. Underneath, cloth. Real cloth. A transit pass clipped to a lanyard. A name. I recognized it. One of ours. The camera swung. Another figure. Same stillness, same frost. Skin, when the glove brushed it, dull and waxy. Eyes open, unfocused. Row after row of them. Uniforms from different eras, old jackets, new vests, street clothes, some in suits, some in hoodies. All of them with transit passes, or staff IDs or visitor badges hanging somewhere on them. People who had worked the lines, ridden them, disappeared onto them. "Get out of there," Lorna said, voice shaking. Now, something flickered in the far tunnel. Lights. A headlamp beam curved around the far bend. A train, moving silently, cutting through dust that spun like ash in its wake. No sound of steel, no screech, no rumble. Just light, and the sense of huge mass sliding closer. "Sir, power is off on that sector," I said. "We cut juice hours ago." "Tech team, evacuate the tunnel," the manager shouted into his headset. "Now, that's an unauthorized—" The radio hissed. A new voice came on the line. Calm, distant, flattened by distance and age. "Central Loop, this is last service," it said. Doors closing, all deadhead passengers on board. In the helmet feed, the tech froze. The figures on the platform did not move. But for a second, their eyes all seemed to turn toward the camera. "Don't watch," Lorna whispered. "Shut it down." I couldn't. The silent train slid into the station. Sleek, old-fashioned, a model we'd retired before I was born. Behind each fogged window, silhouettes stood shoulder to shoulder, as still as the ones on the platform. The tech finally broke. He ran. The helmet view spun wildly, catching glimpses of pale faces, open mouths, hands pressed to the glass from the inside of the train as it matched his speed for a moment, doors sliding open without a sound. The feed cut. We never found him. The official report says equipment malfunction, structural hazard, unauthorized entry into condemned infrastructure. We re-welded the gates, poured new concrete, removed Central Loop from the digital schematics. On the night shift sometimes, just between the last scheduled train and the first maintenance run, the panel shows something else. For a second, a gray arc lights up. A little white block glides along it. And the system announces, in a voice we don't use anymore, "Last train to Central Loop now departing." This service carries no living passengers. I don't work nights now, but when I stand on an ordinary platform as a commuter, listening to the approaching rumble and watching headlights grow, I sometimes see faces in the window that aren't reflected in anyone on the platform. They look like they're waiting to recognize someone. And I know one day, when my own timetable runs out, there's a forgotten train on a forgotten line that will finally find my name. I run an urban exploration channel. I used to introduce myself like that with a kind of pride. Now it feels more like an admission of guilt. My most watched video, before I deleted everything, is called "We Broke Into a Sealed Subway Station at 3 a.m. Regret This." People thought the title was clickbait. It wasn't. The station in question was called Old Meridian, and at one point it had been the heart of the city's transit system. Big vaulted ceiling, Art Deco tiles, brass rails. Then the planners decided it was cheaper to build a new station 2 blocks away than to retrofit the old one for elevators and fire codes. They closed Old Meridian in the 90s, boarded up the entrances, put up plaques about respecting heritage, left it to collect dust under the city. But no system ever really deletes anything. It just layers new stuff on top. Deep in a transit forum, I found a post where a maintenance worker hinted there was still a service door that led down there, leftover from when they used the platforms for filming movies. "Locked, alarmed cameras," he wrote. "But if someone found a way, the old platform is still intact. Tracks, too." He shouldn't have written that. I definitely shouldn't have read it. We went in as a crew of 3. Me, Eli, my camera guy Ryan, and my friend Kira, who did sound and acted as the scared voice of reason on screen. "Guys, this is illegal," she'd say to the camera. "Guys, this is a bad idea." She wasn't wrong. We timed it for a Sunday night. Last train long gone. First train hours away. We scoped patterns, patrols, camera blind spots. We figured out how to slip through a staff gate on the active Meridian Station platform without being seen. Urban exploration is 90% planning, 10% stupidity. The stupidity is the part you film. The service door was exactly where the forum post said it would be. Set into a tile wall behind a row of maintenance lockers, painted the same color. To a casual commuter, it was invisible. To us, it glowed. "Old Meridian, baby," Ryan whispered, rolling video. "First time anyone's seen it in, 30 years? I pulled out the bump key I'd paid too much for from a guy who knew a guy. When the lock gave after a few careful taps, the sound was so soft it might as well have been in my head. We slipped inside. The door closed behind us with a click that sounded final. The stairwell smelled like damp concrete and metal. Our headlamps picked out dust motes and graffiti, tags from bored maintenance crews and film techs, dates from 10, 15 years ago. At the bottom of 87 steps, we hit another door. This one was heavier, with a wheel handle and a flaking sign. "No public access." Station sealed. Kira's breath fogged in the beam of her light. "Last chance to go back," she said quietly. "Are you kidding?" I said, heart pounding. "This is the video. This is the video." We turned the wheel. Old Meridian breathed at us. That's the only way I can describe it. Air rushed past like something had exhaled after holding its breath for years. The darkness beyond our lights felt thick, like fabric. We stepped onto the platform. It was beautiful, in a dead sort of way. High arched ceiling, mosaics of the city skyline, old station name in big ceramic letters along the wall. Dust lay thick on the benches. Old posters peeled in long curls. The movies advertised had come and gone before we were born. "Guys, this is insane," Ryan whispered, panning the camera. "Look at this. It's like a time capsule." At the far end of the platform, the old turnstiles stood frozen mid-rotation, metal bars locked. Beyond them, darkness. The tracks themselves looked wrong. No debris, no trash, no rat droppings. Just two steel rails gleaming faintly under the dust, as if something had polished them. Kira hugged herself. "Do you hear that?" she asked. We all went still. At first, I heard nothing. Then, very faintly, a sound I'd heard a million times in the live station above. The distant rising rumble of an approaching train. "That's impossible," Ryan said quickly. "They bricked off these tunnels. Everything was rerouted through New Meridian." The sound grew. "Maybe it's from upstairs," I said. "Vibrations. Echoes." Kira shook her head. "No," she said. "It's below us. Or around us. I don't know. But it's not right." Our headlamps caught something on the far wall. The old next train indicator. Back when Old Meridian was open, it would have been a simple mechanical board that flipped numbers and destinations. Now it hung crooked. Its glass cracked. As we watched, one of the numbers changed. Dust puffed from inside the casing. The board flicked through times. So 2, 15, 03, 40. Za0 Sauru, then settled on a set of digits that made my skin crawl. The current time. To the minute. "Okay, that's not possible," Ryan stammered. "There's no power down here, right? There's no power." A soft breeze ghosted along the platform, fluttering the edges of old posters. Far down the tunnel, a light appeared. White, steady, moving. We backed up to the very edge of the platform, cameras trained on the darkness. "Okay, we're rolling," I said, because that's what I do when I don't know what else to do. "Guys, there's a light in the tunnel. There is no train scheduled on any line that should be passing through here." But there it is. The rumble became a vibration under our boots. The rails hummed. The light grew, resolving into a familiar pattern. Twin beams, one slightly higher than the other, mounted on the face of the approaching train. The exterior was wrong. Old livery, old logo, a model that had been retired from the system years ago. Maybe they're using it for storage, I said weakly. They maybe forgot. Kira grabbed my arm. Listen, she hissed. The train was less than 50 meters away. We should have been deafened by now. Metal on metal, air being shoved aside, the screech of brakes. There was nothing. Not silence. Something worse. Mute. Like the sound itself had been taken out of the world. The train glided into the station. Our lights bounced off its sides. Dust coated the cars in a thin film. Behind the windows, rows of passengers sat upright, every seat full. They weren't moving. I'm done, Kira said, backing away. We're leaving. We're leaving now. Ryan zoomed in on one of the windows. The faces inside were pale, slack, eyes open and unfocused. Some wore fashions from decades ago, wide lapels, thick glasses. Others looked disturbingly current. Hoodies, headphones, a t-shirt from a band that had only gotten big in the last 5 years. None of them blinked. The doors slid open without a sound. Cold poured out. My breath plumed in front of my face. Do not get on, Kira whispered. Swear to me you're not thinking about it. I'm not stupid, I said. The PA system chimed. We all jumped. The speaker in the arched ceiling was so old it might as well have been part of the original structure. We hadn't noticed it. It crackled once. A flat, automated voice spoke. Next train departing Old Meridian, it said. Last service. All remaining passengers, please board. It paused. Then it said our channel name. Clear. Urban Graveyard crew, please board. I dropped my camera. The temptation was strange. It wasn't curiosity, not exactly. More like gravity. A tug behind my sternum. The sense that if I just sat down in one of those empty seats, something would click into place. A missing piece. Kira was crying openly now. Please, she said. Please don't. Please. Ryan took a step toward the open doors. He didn't look hypnotized. He looked relieved. Guys, he said softly, we have to see where it goes. This is everything. No one has footage of this. No one. I grabbed him. His arm was ice cold under his jacket. Ryan, look at them, I hissed. They're not alive. He stared at the nearest passenger. A man in a suit, tie neatly knotted, hands folded in his lap. A transit employee ID clipped to his coat pocket. The photo faded. His name badge read, Supervisor, Old Meridian. He's just sleeping, Ryan muttered. The man's eyes were wide open. Beyond him, in the next car, I saw a child's face. And behind that, a woman with a stroller. And behind that, a teenager in a hoodie I had seen on a missing persons poster last year. All of them utterly still. The PA chimed again. Final call, it said. Service will not run again. The pressure behind my ribs increased. A physical ache. Kira took my hand. Her grip was shaking but strong. We leave, she said. Now. I nodded. Ryan, I said, if you get on that train, you don't come back. There is no second take. There is no sequel. You ride it once. He looked at me. At the car. At the camera lying on the platform. Something in his expression shifted. He stepped back. The doors slid shut. The train pulled away without a sound. We filmed it. Of course we did. We filmed the tail lights disappearing into the tunnel, leaving only darkness and dust motes spinning in our beams. We left Old Meridian in a hurry. The stairwells felt steeper, the doors heavier. The live station above seemed absurdly bright and loud, commuters shouldering past us, oblivious. We didn't talk much on the way home. The footage uploaded itself. I know how that sounds, but I hadn't set it to auto-sync. Still, when I opened my laptop, the files were already in a folder labeled Last Train. The video blew up. Millions of views in days. Comments split between fake, masterpiece, and I recognize that person in the third car. They went missing in 2009. Then people started sending me things. Old news clippings, rumors. The urban legend we hadn't known we'd tapped into. Forgotten lines, they called them. The last trains that come when you die in transit. If you die on the system, they say you board a service that only runs once more, through stations nobody remembers, until everyone on board has accepted they're not going back. A week after upload, I got an email. No sender, no subject. Just one line, "You filmed a service that wasn't yours." The next night at 03:17, my building's fire alarm went off. Everyone evacuated to the street. Sirens, flashing lights, the whole drill. I glanced down the block. At the entrance to my local subway station, a digital sign flickered. Last train. 3 Mainan. That station doesn't have late-night service. It closes at 01 Darwao. The gate was down. Behind the grate, in the darkness, I heard it. The muted, impossible rumble. I deleted the channel in the morning, but that doesn't matter, not really. The footage is out there, mirrored, downloaded, clipped into TikToks and reaction videos. People say if you pause at the right frame, you can see 3 blurry figures standing too close to the platform edge behind the camera. We're not there in the raw file. Not yet. In the railway world, a deadhead train is one that runs empty between destinations. No passengers, no cargo, just a piece of equipment being moved where it's needed. That's what I thought I was driving. I've been a subway operator for 15 years. I've seen everything from brawls to births to people treating my train like a therapist's couch. I've done late shifts, early shifts, and the weird dead-of-night maintenance runs they don't put on public timetables. The night that matters, my roster just said, Run 0D, yard to terminus. No service. I signed for my keys, checked the control sheet, and walked the length of the train in the yard. 6 cars, new model, clean, empty. The yard foreman, Torres, met me at the cab. "You're taking her down the old blue alignment," he said, lighting a cigarette in the cold. "We've got signal techs testing the upgrade. They want a live train running through." "The old alignment's dead," I said. "We only use the bypass now." "Not tonight," he said. "Dispatch has the path set. You go slow, stop when they tell you, that's it." "Any passengers?" He gave me a look. "Read the sheet, man," he said. "No service. Doors locked, lights off in the cars. Just you." Something about that bothered me more than I wanted to admit. I like passengers. They make the job feel real. Still, a run's a run. I climbed into the cab, went through the startup sequence, and eased the train out of the yard under a sky the color of dirty wool. The radio crackled. "Train 0D, this is control," a voice said. "You are clear from yard to junction 7 on the old blue alignment. Proceed with caution. Report any anomalies." "Copy, control," I said. "Deadhead on blue, no service." There's a moment when you leave the live part of the system and slip into retired track, when the air changes. On the main line, the tunnels are busy. You feel distant trains through the rails. You sense pressure changes from stations ahead. Even with soundproofing, you feel the city breathing up there. On abandoned alignments, that stops. It's like stepping into a vacuum. The lights in my cab reflected back from the tunnel walls. The usual graffiti thinned out. Old tile, old signage, half-bricked maintenance doors. I passed a platform that had never been finished, just raw concrete and a metal beam with no station name. 0D to control, I said. Passing ghost platform between junction 4 and 5. Looks as ugly as ever. Static. Then, copy, 0D, Control said. The voice was flat. Continue. I couldn't place the dispatcher. New hire, maybe. Night shift sometimes gets the rookies. At junction 7, the cab signals flicked from green to yellow. I slowed. Control, 0D at junction 7, I said. Am I holding for techs? Silence. Then, proceed, the voice said. Speed? I asked. Line speed, it said. That was wrong. On test runs, we crawl. 10-20 kilometers per hour tops. Enough to trigger sensors, not enough to break anything if something's misaligned. Please confirm, I said. Line speed on unscheduled alignment? The radio hissed. Proceed, the voice repeated. Line speed. The signal in the cab stayed yellow. I compromised. I went faster than crawl, slower than full. The tunnel ahead curved. On the line diagram in my cab, the route ended at Old Terminus, a station retired before my time, like Old Meridian in another city. In our system, it had been replaced by a deeper, bigger terminal one stop farther. Old Terminus, officially, no longer existed. The train hummed. The tracks here felt smooth. Too smooth for metal that hadn't seen regular use in years. It was like gliding on glass. The cab lights flickered. For a second, the reflection in the windshield showed not just me in my seat, but rows of shadowy figures behind me. I turned. The cars were dark, empty. 0D to control, I said slowly. Confirm. Car lights are off. Door locks engaged. Silence. Then faintly, under the static, I heard something. Not the dispatcher. Announcements. Next stop. Terminus. The voice was the old recording. The one they stopped using years ago. Different cadence, different accent. It shouldn't have been in this train system at all. The PA in my cab chimed. Doors closing, the old voice said calmly. Please stand clear. My doors were already shut. The braking curve on my display shifted. The train was preparing to stop. Control, who triggered PA on my consist? I snapped. This is a deadhead. There are no stops scheduled. Silence. Then, in a voice that was neither the dispatcher nor the PA, the radio said, Last stop. End of the line. The tunnel widened. We emerged into a cavernous space. Old Terminus. It shouldn't have looked like that. Officially, the station had been gutted. Platforms ripped out, access stairs sealed, signage removed. Engineering diagrams showed a bare maintenance vault where a station had once been. What I saw was a fully lit terminal. Old tiles, old benches, old advertising boards. Analog clocks frozen at different times. 2 platforms flanking a central track. They were full. Not crowded, not bustling. Full. People stood in neat rows near the edge, facing my train. They wore coats and hats from different decades. A woman in a vintage skirt suit, clutching a shopping bag from a store that closed when I was 10. A kid in a school uniform from a district that had changed colors 3 times since. A man in a fluorescent security vest with a logo we no longer use. None of them moved. The platform displays flickered. For a second, instead of the usual no service or out of use, they showed my run. Train 0D, last service. The brake curve finished. The train stopped. The doors opened by themselves. Control, I whispered. If this is a joke, end it now. No answer. Someone stepped into my cab. I didn't see the door open, but suddenly there was a woman standing behind me. She wore a faded operator's uniform from the old company before the last rebrand. Her hair was pinned up. Her eyes were gray and very calm. Her badge read, Driver Martins. I'd seen that name in training. We had a plaque in the depot. She died in an accident. Years ago. Official story, brake failure, overshoot, Collision with buffer stops at Old Terminus during final decommissioning. "Slide your seat," she said quietly. My hand moved on its own, pushing the chair back on its rail. She sat. Her skin was the color of old paper. "You took my route," she said, not unkindly. "You shouldn't be on it." I stared at her hands on the controls. There was no breath misting from her lips. Beyond the windshield, passengers began to board my train. They moved in eerie unison, stepping forward, filing through the open doors in silent lines. No phones, no chatter. Some looked confused. Others looked resigned. I recognized faces. A woman who jumped from my car 3 years ago. A man whose heart had stopped between stations on my shift. A kid hit by a train I wasn't driving, but whose photo had hung in the break room next to a collection jar. All the ones the system hadn't been able to save. "You're not supposed to be here," Martins repeated gently. "You're early." I swallowed. "Where is this?" I whispered. "Really?" She smiled sadly. "Forgotten timetables," she said. "Routes that were canceled but never erased. A depot for people who never finished their ride." The radio crackled. Control's voice came through, faint, like from underwater. "0D, you missed your checkpoint. Do you copy? 0D, report status." I grabbed the handset. "Control, this is 0D, I said. Martins put her hand on mine. My fingers went numb. "They can't hear you from here," she said. "You can hear them, but it doesn't go the other way. That's how it works." The platform emptied. Every seat in every car was now occupied. Every face turned toward the front. Toward me. "Why show me this?" I asked. My voice shook. If I don't belong here yet, why bring me?" "Because you set the path," she said. "Because you drove dead lines. Because you thought no service meant no one inside." Her eyes met mine. "Now you know better." She stood. The driver's seat felt heavy and cold without her in it. "When do I come back?" I asked before I could stop myself. Martins tilted her head, like she was listening to something far away. "Depends," she said. "On your speed, on your stops, on how many people are waiting when you pass through." She stepped toward the cab door. "Wait," I said. "If this is the last train, why is it running now if I'm early?" She paused. "Because last trains don't always come at the end," she said. "Sometimes they come as a warning." She faded. Not dramatically. No swirl, no smoke. One frame she was there. The next she wasn't. The lights in the station flickered. Old Terminus emptied. The passengers remained seated in my train. The announcement chimes sounded. "Next stop," the old PA voice said. "No station." The brake curve shifted. We started moving. The tunnel swallowed us. I don't remember the trip back. One moment I was staring at the dead bank of monitors in my cab. The next I was rolling into the live terminus we use now. Bright lights, modern signage, cleaners on the platform. The train was empty. The supervisor on duty looked annoyed. "Where the hell have you been?" she demanded as soon as I opened the cab door. "You dropped off radar near Junction 7. No signal, no response. We almost called a code black." "Signal dead zone," I said automatically. "Radio trouble." "Next time, don't take shortcuts they tell you are retired," she snapped. "You're cleared for one more run tonight. After that, go home. You look like death." I laughed a little too hard. I still drive. I still like the morning rush, the lunchtime crowds, the little dramas that play out in my cars. But every time I pass a disused spur, every time my cab diagram shows a faint ghost of an alignment that isn't there anymore, I feel a pull. Sometimes late at night the PA chimes by itself. "Next stop," the old voice says, just loud enough for me to hear over the rumble. "No station." And in the reflection in the windshield, for a heartbeat, I see my train packed with people who aren't in my cars yet. Waiting.